Oh, good morning. Happy Sunday morning. I don't know if you notice, I tend to be one that notices things like this, so I'll just explain. My shelf is next to empty. We are in the process of moving. We just sold our house just over a week ago and made an offer on a house. And within the next, I think, less than 30 days, we will be moving. So we're just packing, de-junking, clearing out some of the stuff we've collected for 20 years in this house. 20, yeah. I think we're in our 20th year. I don't think we've completed 20 years here yet, but a lot of life has happened here. A lot of stuff has been collected here. So, yeah. Anyway, it's a little bit sad. I'm very sentimental. It's just me by nature. Um, and a lot of I don't think I'll use the word exciting yet. Um, um, I'll get there. I'm kind of slow to excitement because of my sentimentality that just comes naturally to me. I'll get to the excitement phase, but what it feels like right now though is new doors opening up and really shedding light on a new phase of life that has lots of potential to be exciting and um, I don't know. I just really believe in the purpose of life and that uh, things have a purpose. I don't believe everything has a purpose. I don't believe that there's a reason for everything, like a big, I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that we can make something out of every situation. And I definitely believe that the Lord knows way more about our lives than we do. And that if we're willing to just trust the process and let go, but also lean on Him and trust in Him and ask Him and involve Him, He definitely will take us to places that we couldn't go on our own. So that's what I'm doing. This is happening with lots of areas in my life. I feel like almost every part of my life, minus my car. I still drive the same car for now. Not knock on wood. I love my car. I've been driving the same car for 10 years, 11 years now, and I love my car. Um, but anyways, everything else is very different, and I fought it. I fought the change, and now I'm ready to move on. Anyway, that's a very, self-indulgent self-indulgent, share before we dig in. So, ironically, First Nephi has a lot of life changes that are happening for Nephi and his family. So Nephi, Lehi, his I don't know if you remember from the intro or the title page and the intro into the chapter, Nephi was talking about how um he has had, let's see, Laman, Lemuel, and Sam, and then him. And he's like the youngest. So he has his three brothers and him. I think he had sisters too, they just don't mention them um by name, but they also were engraving their life on plates of brass, I mean of gold. So anyway, limited space. Who knows why all the names aren't mentioned? And I might just be like, that's my own thought process. I believe he had sisters. That can come up in another conversation. We ended. Oh, I didn't finish my thought though. Sorry. I'm a little bit all over the place, I'm noticing this morning. Sorry about that. Again, this is just raw, real, messy me coming on, reading my Book of Mormon out loud, doing it with you, because even if I never see your face, or maybe there's never a real you, it feels like communication to me, which is really helpful for me in doing my own processing. It's just one of the things I've learned about me and the way my personality and the way my temperament, the way my brain works, is that external communication is a really big part of the pondering part of search, ponder, pray. That's how I process. I do a lot internally and then externally as well is where my sweet spot is. So I'm externally processing to you, whoever you ends up being. And a lot of that, as far as me goes, is messy, and it's enjoyable for me, and hopefully you're able to follow me a little bit. So anyway, last week we ended at verse 15 in First Nephi chapter 1. Um, we were talking about how Lehi was praying, and the Lord spoke to him in a pillar of fire, and he was carried away in the spirit, and he saw a vision, which then exhausted him. He came home and he fell upon his bed and continued to ponder upon what he had seen. Um, and he saw some things like Jerusalem being destroyed, being carried away captive, and lots of other great marvelous things. And because of all of it, his soul rejoiced, which is interesting because he doesn't really talk about, I mean, he does mention great and marvelous things. He mentions the goodness and the mercy of the Lord over the inhabitants of the earth. He doesn't go into details about that. He does talk about destruction. And, most of us, I think human nature, we live in a fallen world. We're fallen beings for a reason. We're here imperfectly to learn how to lean in and trust God to make up the difference, to fill in the gaps of imperfection as we learn from Him how to choose the paths that lead us to experiencing the power of following the laws, to experience the benefits, the blessings that come with every law. We hear all the time, we can choose our path, we can choose our first step. We have the agency, the right, and the responsibility to make choices in our lives. We don't get to choose the consequence of those choices. So whatever we choose, there's a musical called My Turn on Earth, super old, I think the 70s or the 80s, but it's like, when you choose the very first step in the road, you also choose the last. So you choose one end, you also choose the other end. You don't get to mix and match. Um, so if I were to, I guess, pick up this chapstick, I also pick up the end of it, right? So anyway, we don't get to choose the consequences, but we definitely get to choose the choices. And then it's like, if you don't like the end of the road, you better back up. You better back up fast. And that's just how I think. Sorry, music is a big deal to me, but we can choose to stop to notice where the consequences are taking us or where the end of the road is. Have you ever been like trying to find an address and you realize you're hitting a dead end? Like the only way out of that, you could stay there and like, now what am I going to do? And pray that God lifts you out or comes, sends a helicopter or whatever. But really, the answer is to back up and to find a different road. And we have the opportunity and the choice to do that with every step that we take, with every choice that we make. And that's part of being human. That's part of learning, right? So, all of that to say, we, as being these imperfect humans and living in an imperfect world, there's this entropy, there's this downward spiral that we all are in, or fighting gravity, both like physically, but also I think emotionally, mentally. It's just part of the game. So we all I think all of us some of the time, and I think most of us most of the time tend to notice the bad things, the hard things, um, either first or most, or maybe only when almost all, well, no, there's always opposition in all things. When there's bad things going on, there are also good things going on. Do we notice those things? Like right now, the LA fires are going on. It's a big deal. There's a lot of destruction. I don't know if you've been following that, but my daughter lives in that area. She's actually evacuated. She's here in St. George with us right now, and so we go there quite often. My husband grew up in California, so been there a lot. And to see people driving down these roads that I've driven down many times and knowing what they're like, and to see them now is like mind-boggling. It's like, what? Like it's not the same Southern California that it once was. And it will never be exactly the same ever again. And how will it be rebuilt? And we'll see. But anyways, in that, we can choose to only look at that, and of course, we can't denying it also isn't a good idea, I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of good things happening, and there's a lot of really wonderful stories that come out of this. I don't with 9/11, all of that. We look back and we see the beauty of human kindness and mercies, tender mercies of the Lord, where things do get rebuilt, and a lot of times they're rebuilt in ways that were better than they were before, and whatever. But all that to say, Lehi not only saw the destruction of Jerusalem where he lived and where he loved, and a lot of the people that he loved being destroyed and carried away into Babylon, he also saw the goodness and the mercy and the power of the Lord and the love he has for the people, for his children, for the people that live in the world. And he was full of rejoicing. His whole heart was filled with rejoicing because he was willing to see that and to prioritize the love and the mercy of the Lord. And remember, experiencing life through that filter being the first filter doesn't mean the other filters aren't there. Doesn't mean that everything doesn't also exist. But if that's the first filter of our life, it can absolutely make a difference in our experience of life, in the choices that we make, and our ability to uh, experience joy in this life along with the stuff that is inherently hard about being human and living in this world that we live in. So that's where we ended. That was verse 15. So let's read the rest of the chapter. And now I, Nephi, do not make a full account of the things which my father hath written, for he hath written many things which he saw in visions and in dreams, and he hath also written many things which he prophesied and spake unto his children, of which I shall not make a full account. And he's like, here's the summary of what my dad saw. It's part of why I'm writing. It's part of my experience too. He's my dad. I'm living it alongside with him. But I don't need to redo what he's done. I don't need to retell. I don't need to, I don't know if he's saying waste the space that I have on these plates telling his story. Chapter or verse 17, but I shall make an account of my proceedings in my days. And I just think there's importantness in that. As far as mental health is concerned and relationship health, when we make our lives completely about someone else and don't also own the fact that we are our own individual person and that we also hold space and have the responsibility to hold that space, to make our lives be what they can be, to take responsibility for our part in things, then that's it's on two ends of healthy. Healthy's here. We can completely disappear, or we can try to take control of other people. But that's not what it's about. We need to be our own version of ourselves, our own healthy version. We're here to become the best selves we can be. We have no control over what anyone else does. And so sometimes we totally enmesh ourselves and try to disappear within them, maybe even give them the responsibility to do our part and be our happiness for us. Or we can totally reject people and I don't need people in my life. I completely you don't affect me and all the things that go with that. Neither one of those is the fullness of truth or happiness. But when we can be our complete selves and also interlap and realize that we are interconnected with other people, that's where true health, true happiness, true functioning in life comes from. And so we need to make an account of our proceeding in our days, right? And everything that goes with that. So I just love that. Nephi is recognizing, I'm a human being too. I have my experience, and that's what I'm in charge of, because that's what I know best, and that's my reason for being here. So behold, I make an abridgment of the record of my father upon plates which I have made with mine own hands. Wherefore, after I have abridged the record of my father, then will I make an account of mine own life. So he's abridging that again. It's part of who he is. He's not saying, this is my dad's stuff. He's like, it affects me in my life because I'm a human being and I live on earth with people, which is a part of God's plan. So I'm acknowledging it, I'm abridging it, but I'm not making it my whole record, and my whole, self isn't lost in that. So anyway, verse 18. Therefore I would that ye should know that after the Lord had shown so many marvelous things unto my father Lehi, yea, concerning the destruction of Jerusalem, behold, he went forth among the people and began to prophesy and to declare unto them concerning the things which he had both seen and heard. Lehi took responsibility for what he was taught from the Lord, and he wanted to share that with other people. I think that's also important. We all have a purpose, and when we keep our purpose to ourselves, then what's the purpose? I don't know. Verse 19, and it came to pass that the Jews did mock him because of the things which he had testified of them. Have any of you felt mocked or made fun of, or like other people don't think what you have to say is important? I think that's also part of being human. What we have to say and do does affect other people, and sharing our purpose does enlighten, or it just makes human life more enjoyable. And there's lots of other things below that, to be able to share life with other people. But also, our gifts and our experiences aren't meant to just be ours alone. And so it doesn't say that Lehi went forth among the people to force them to do what he was saying or to believe what he was believing or what he believes or what he had learned. He's just saying he went forth to prophesy and to declare unto them concerning what he had both seen and heard. He's just sharing it with other people. And it came to pass that the Jews did mock him because of the things which he testified of them, for he truly testified of their wickedness and their abominations, and he testified that the things which he saw and heard, and also the things which he read in the book, manifested plainly of the coming of a Messiah, and also the redemption of the world. And when the Jews heard these things, they were angry with him, yea, even as with the prophets of old, whom they had cast out, and stoned, and slain. And they also sought his life, that they might take it away. But behold, I, Nephi, will show unto you that the tender mercies of the Lord are over all those whom he hath chosen, because of their faith, to make them mighty even unto the power of deliverance. And again, I think there's a lot there. Obviously, I think there's a lot in all of the words, in all of the verses, because I continue to stop and pontificate on them. And every time I read the scriptures, I get something new from them. I think they just open new doors to understanding and thought processes, because we're just here to, figure things out, but not on our own, with the Lord and with each other, and to talk about our own thoughts as we go, because then that's where thoughts come together. We can find, okay, whoa, there's a theme here. This resonates. Maybe there's something to this. I don't think all of my thoughts are true. I don't think all of my thoughts are better than anyone's thoughts or need to be listened to. But as we share them and as they come together, I think that's where truth a lot of the time is found. I also 100% believe in prophets. I believe that there are such things as living prophets that are in and have been called to be in communication with the Lord. I think being called, so it mentions, I'll show you that the tender mercies of the Lord are over all those whom he hath chosen. That can sound like favoritism, or it can sound like predestination, or lots of other words that have been given to that. I also think it's important that the comma and then the little clause that comes after that, because of their faith. That's what chooses us. We kind of choose ourselves. And the Lord invites everyone in. The Lord wants all of us to be a part of the big picture. Like, if you really believe that he is, I do, I believe that God is the Father of our spirits, which is who we truly are. I think we're literal children of a father and mother in heaven that are our heavenly parents, and that they love us just like I love my kids, only more, because they're perfect and they have a perfect love. So I believe that their love is as hard as it is to believe, their love for me and for you is even more wide and deep and grand and powerful than the love that I feel for my own kids. And that's hard to believe, because that's pretty big, and deep and wide and intense. But they invite all of us in, but they also give us a choice. They're not going to force us in. They're not going to force us to love them. They're not going to, force us to follow them. They're not going to force us to take the advice that they give us. But when we do, we become chosen. We choose in to then receive that end of the road, right? I've taken the first step. I also get the end step. And when I choose opposite, I can back up and I can choose back in. But we become chosen because of our faith to trust what we're being told. And I believe that part of being told that really one of the, I don't want to limit God, but one of the only ways, maybe the best way that He has designed is that He speaks to us through prophets. Now, there's lots of people that might be false prophets, so there's ways to discern that I've learned that I find are ways to know if somebody's truly a prophet, and we can get into that another time. But I think some of us are literally called of God to be a prophet and to prophesy to us about what the commandments are and which are the best roads to take. Just like we have a cartographer, is that what they're called, who develops maps because they have an aerial view of the area and they make the maps. I'll this last thought and then I'll end for today. I was in a geography class. Yeah, I think geology and geography to me are they're so close to the same thing in my mind that I forget if it was called geology or geography, but I'm pretty sure it was geography because I thought I was going to be learning about culture and places and maps. That anyway, it was about maps, but it was in the creation of maps, like the geology, like the landscape, what goes into creating a map. And this teacher was brilliant. It was really, I thought I would hate the class. I took it because it was a general ed, but it was so fascinating. I loved every second of it. We went on a field trip and she showed us how, because of her understanding of my area where I live, she was able to create maps that helped land developers know the best places to build and home buyers to know the best places to buy and what to watch out for and what the warning signs were. She's like, this zone over here has a lot of danger of rock landslide. This over here is like a flood zone. These places have blue clay, which if you build on this blue clay, you have a very high risk of your house collapsing or settling or becoming, um, unlivable over time. And she's all, and people don't use the map or they choose to ignore it because they want to develop the land and they want to build. They'll build there. So they'll do little things to make it seem like it's okay, or they just won't disclose it. And then we went on a little tour of all of these gorgeous homes that were not livable anymore. They had been reinforced by a lot of different strange little structures on the outside to try and maintain the livability in the houses. But there some of them were actually had condemned tape, like caution tape around them, and they couldn't live there anymore because they chose not to follow the warnings that were given by they're very publicly available. She's like, I work really hard to do this work so people can know where it's safe to build and they don't have to do the work for themselves. This is my calling in life. I love it. I'm good at it. And I work. This is like here available. I didn't even know it was a thing because you don't know what you don't know. But after being exposed to this education, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is important to pay attention to. Right. So, um, anyway, it's the same way with commandments and I think with prophets and people are called to warn us of if this happens, this is going to happen. And so wickedness isn't like you're a bad person, you're a good person. This is a maybe the word isn't the best word to use all the time, but I bet if we were to look at the Hebrew or the Egyptian version or definition of the word that was then translated into English, I bet it has a lot more substance to it than what we think. Okay, we see the word wickedness. All right, they're judging. They're judging. I'm not, they're judged anyway. We go there a lot in our world today. No, it's more of a warning of if you do or don't do this, this is the end of the road. So Lehi was called and took the calling and spend a lot of his life in service trying to help people see, like, look, when you do this, this happens. And I believe that's what prophets are called to do. So, yeah, that's the end of chapter 1. Lehi communicated with God. He had a calling to then share what he learned with other people. Because of that, a lot of the people um, mocked him, made fun of him, threatened to kill him and his family. And we'll learn even more like how did his family receive it? What do they do about it? What's going to happen from here? But also part in there was like Nephi saying, and I'm my own person. I'm definitely connected to my dad and the things that he's learning and the things going on in his life, but I also have my own experience of that. So I'm going to acknowledge it, but I'm also going to write my own experience because it's my life. And yeah, I take responsibility for that. So, what can we glean from that? Maybe it's a good idea to journal, to write our experiences. Um, I think it's a good idea to learn to be our own person so that we can, like, in healthy ways, be connected to our families and our friends and our communities without totally being swallowed by them or totally trying to swallow other people. I mean, I find so many principles of mental health alone in the scriptures and in the Book of Mormon throughout. There's just so many. I just believe the Lord speaks a lot in metaphors and symbols, and he shares lots of true principles through experiences that he gives with people, and they're written down in scripture, and we learn through that what those basic principles are, and then we get to choose in or out, or most of us do a little bit of both. So anyway, that's the end of First Nephi chapter 1, and I'll be back next week. We'll start chapter 2. I hope you have a great week, and yeah, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.